Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 2 of the summer semester. I hope you're all doing well. I have graded your essays, your analysis papers from Module 1, and I have to say, I am super impressed by what I saw. Most of you are using the citations excellently. You're staying within the scope of the documents and sourcing them and citing them and just writing really good essays overall, answering the questions that I posed to you. Keep up the good work. That's fantastic. This is exactly what I wanted. I've included notes with your grades, so please read the notes. I might have like minor tips or suggestions or criticism there, but overall, I just want you guys to be encouraged by what you're doing. This is excellent. So good job. So for week 2, module 2, we are looking at the outcome of a lot of those Enlightenment ideals that you wrote about. Ideas of separation of powers, how too much power concentrated in the hands of one person can be a bad thing. Montesquieu and Jefferson especially wrote on that. Rousseau had this idea of the social contract, which is basically the idea that if your government sucks, you can overthrow it. Like, you have a moral obligation to your fellow men and women in society, your fellow citizens, to protest and speak out against corruption and make society better. That's the social contract theory. It's interesting that we're learning about those things now as we're seeing mass protests throughout the United States against the idea of corruption or abuse of power, albeit not in a governmental way necessarily, but still it's this idea of always trying to make society a better place. And the Enlightenment thinkers would say, yeah, like this is our job, is to try and make society a better place. Whenever we see perceived wrongs, we need to correct them. That brings us then to the French Revolution, which is chapter 18, and that's your readings for this week. Now, it's a big chapter. There's a lot that goes on in the French Revolution. The quiz is going to be on, I think, the most important parts of it, kind of the main phases of the revolution. So don't feel like you have to get bogged down in reading about, like the law and punishment parts of the chapter. I'm just kind of looking through my book right now. There's you'll definitely want to focus on the tennis court oath, the Declaration of the Rights of Man. Those are two events that really helped kick off the revolution. And especially the Declaration of the Rights of Man it's basically the Declaration of Independence for the French. We have the American Revolution that happened first, and then a few years later, the French Revolution happened. And both of these revolutions are based on Enlightenment ideals that, you know what, we don't have to settle for a crappy king, right? We don't have to settle for a crappy, corrupt government. We can do better than that. And so both of these, the American and the French Revolution, are a direct outcome of these ideas that people have been tossing around in the Enlightenment. For this chapter, don't feel like you need to read it all word for word. Get the most important points. You'll want to focus on, you'll want to focus on the Reign of Terror, especially. That starts on page 488. I do ask you a few questions relating to the Reign of Terror. And basically what that was is, so the French imprisoned their king. They had a revolt. They kicked the king out of power. They kind of kept him under house arrest, and then later they arrest him and execute him. And so the French are trying to figure out, like, what's the best form of government? Let's make something based on kind of the British or the American model, separation of powers, giving rights to men, the right to vote, things like that, equal rights, the right to freedom of speech and a free press and all that. Women are largely left out, unfortunately, and that's a common theme, is these revolutions are pretty sexist. So ladies, you have to wait until the 20th century to get your full set of rights. But so the revolution goes from this like, yay, we kicked out the king, we're making things better, to it devolves after a couple of years, things get really bloody because no one can really agree on what the new government should look like. And eventually you have the radicals, the Jacobin party is what they're called, take over the revolution, and they use it to kill a bunch of people they don't like. And that's basically the reign of terror. They set up this body called the Committee of Public Safety, which has kind of dictatorial powers. They can throw people in prison for any reason. They can kill people for any reason. It gets pretty bad. So the French Revolution, it starts out with these high-minded Enlightenment ideals that, hey, we're making the world a better place. We're gonna do better than just the crappy king that we've always had. And then things get bad because even though democracy is a great thing, it can lead to problems because arguments occur if there's no stable source of authority. People feel like they can do whatever they want if they don't get their way. There's a crisis of legitimacy during the French Revolution. All that to say, things get pretty bad for a while. And then we get Napoleon. And Napoleon kind of closes out the chapter. You don't necessarily need to read about all about Napoleon's campaigns. It talks a lot about his military career. But basically Napoleon, just to save you some reading, Napoleon goes from being a general in the French army to overthrowing the baby republic that the French had set up, and he becomes an emperor. He becomes a dictator. So where the American Revolution got some things right, where we set up a democracy and we, to date, have not really had a dictator yet, the French go from king to democracy to dictator within about 10 years. So it's kind of a crazy story. But the overall importance of this, and I'll be asking you about this in the first exam, the midterm exam in a couple of weeks. The overall importance of the French Revolution is that for the first time in Europe, a king was overthrown. And democracy, even though it was really messy and bloody and it didn't last very long, democracy was tried. Like these Enlightenment ideals were put into practice. Like they went from theory to practice during the French Revolution. And that kind of breaks the seal where other countries try to make their countries a better place, right? Either by kicking out their kings and setting up new governments, or by pressuring the kings to accept certain reforms and allowing people greater freedom. So that's why reading about the French Revolution is pretty important. Okay, well, that's it for this video for this week. Keep up the good work, everyone. You're doing great. If you have any questions, email me or send me a chat on Microsoft Teams. A few of you have done that already, and that's great. Other than that, keep up the good work. This week I will probably have office hours. I wasn't able to last week because of family emergencies, but this week I'll have office hours. So if you ever want to contact me, video chat, anything like that, just let me know. All right, guys, have a good week, and I will see you later. Bye.